They were on the edge of divorce. No love, no trust, just silence. Until one night, she picked up the Quran and began reciting Ayat al-Kursi. Not once, not twice, but 100 times every single day. What happened next shocked them both. Arguments faded, hearts softened, and a marriage that was falling apart was wrapped in the mercy of Allah. This is not just a story. It's the living proof of the power of Allah's words. The rain had been falling since before dawn, tapping against the window of the small apartment in the old quarter of Hyderabad. The streets below shimmered in the half-light, water pooling in the potholes that no one seemed to remember to fix. Inside, the air was heavy with silence. Not the comforting kind, but the kind that swells between two people who share the same roof, but no longer share the same heart. Aliyah sat at the edge of the bed, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea she hadn't touched in an hour. Her husband, Imran, sat in the living room, scrolling aimlessly through his phone, the faint blue glow reflecting off his tired face. 3 years ago, they had been newlyweds, their laughter filling every corner of this apartment. Now, they spoke only when necessary, their voices stripped of warmth. It wasn't that either of them had done something unforgivable. It was death by 1,000 small wounds, missed moments, unspoken resentments, a creeping distance that neither knew how to close. Arguments had turned into avoidance, and avoidance had turned into numbness. That morning, as the call to far echoed faintly through the rain, Aliyah found herself staring at the Quran on the shelf. It had been weeks since she last opened it. She wasn't proud of that fact, but she had felt spiritually drained for so long that she didn't know where to begin. Her eyes fell on a bookmarked page, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 255. Ayat al-Kursi. She remembered her grandmother's voice telling her as a child, "This verse is a shield. Recite it often, and Allah will protect you from harm you cannot even see." She didn't know why, but something in her heart whispered, "Read it now." She reached for the Quran, the paper soft from years of turning. Her lips moved quietly.
الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
The words rolled over her tongue like a bomb, each syllable anchoring her heart a little more firmly. When she finished, she felt a warmth she hadn't felt in months, no years. It wasn't the end of her sadness, but it was the first drop of light in a very long darkness. That night, she searched online for the virtues of Ayat al-Kursi. She read hadith after hadith, the one in Sahih Muslim where the Prophet said, "Whoever recites Ayat al-Kursi after every obligatory prayer, nothing stands between him and paradise except death." Another narration told of its power to protect from shayateen until morning when read at night. But one post caught her eye. It spoke of a man whose marriage had been on the verge of collapse until he began reciting Ayat al-Kursi 100 times daily. He said it didn't just protect him. It softened his heart, removed his anger, and restored peace in his home. Aliyah wasn't superstitious, but she knew the Quran wasn't magic. It was the speech of Allah, filled with guidance and healing. And right now, she and Imran were in desperate need of both. That evening, as Imran came home from work, dripping rainwater onto the floor, she surprised herself by speaking before he could retreat into silence. "Imran, I'm going to try something. I'm going to read Ayat al-Kursi 100 times a day. I don't know what it will do, but I need Allah's help. Maybe you could join me?" He looked at her with an unreadable expression. Part of him wanted to scoff. He was tired, frustrated, and not in the mood for anything that felt like an experiment. But something in her tone, soft, without accusation, made him pause. 100 times? He asked, half skeptical. Yes, every day, for 40 days. Just try with me. He shrugged. All right, I'll try. The first day felt strange. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, counting quietly on their fingers as they recited. At first, it was mechanical. Imran's mind wandered to work emails. Aliya's to the unwashed dishes in the sink. But somewhere around the 40th repetition, something shifted. For Imran, the words began to settle into his chest like a slow, steady heartbeat. For Aliya, the verse began to feel like an unbreakable rope tying her to her creator. By the 7th day, they noticed subtle changes. The tension in the air wasn't gone, but it had thinned. They found themselves making small talk again, about the rain, about dinner, about the funny neighbor downstairs. Imran began coming home earlier. Aliya began smiling more. On the 10th day, Imran confessed something over breakfast. I don't know why, but I feel lighter, like I'm not carrying as much anger. Aliya nodded. I feel the same. It's like Allah is cleaning the dust off our hearts. By the 20th day, the changes were undeniable. They laughed together for the first time in months, really laughed. One night, when electricity went out, they lit candles and read Ayat al-Kursi together in the dim glow. The words filled the room with a peace that felt almost tangible. On the 25th day, Imran came home looking shaken. Something happened today, he said. He explained how a co-worker had tried to provoke him into an argument, but instead of snapping, as he usually would, he had felt an almost supernatural calm. It was like my tongue was under control, he said, like someone was holding it back from saying something I'd regret. Aliya smiled knowingly. That's the protection of Allah. The 40th day arrived quietly, without fanfare. They recited their 100th Ayat al-Kursi for the day, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. Imran reached for her hand, something he hadn't done in months. We can stop now, he said, but I don't want to. Neither do I. And so they didn't. What began as a desperate act became a daily habit. Weeks turned into months, and their marriage grew into something deeper than before. It wasn't that problems disappeared. Life still brought stress, disagreements, and challenges, but their hearts had been softened, and their home had been fortified with the remembrance of Allah. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Imran spoke quietly. Do you realize what happened? We asked Allah for help, and He didn't just fix us, He transformed us. Ayat al-Kursi didn't just protect us from harm, it protected us from ourselves. Aliya looked at him, her eyes brimming. Yes, and I think we both know now that no marriage can survive without Allah in the center. Years later, when their children were old enough to understand, they told them the story of the 100 recitations, not as a ritual to be blindly followed, but as a testament to the living power of Allah's words. Because, Imran would say, the Quran is not just to be read, it is to be lived. And somewhere, in a home that had once been filled with silence, the daily recitation of Ayat al-Kursi continued, an unbroken shield, a constant light, and the rope that held two hearts together in the mercy of Allah. My brothers and sisters, if Ayat al-Kursi can transform a broken marriage into a home filled with peace, imagine what it can do for your life. Start today, recite it after every prayer, or make it a daily habit 100 times. Watch how Allah protects you, softens your heart, and brings barakah into your home. And if this story touched you, share it so others can find hope in Allah's words. Subscribe to Deen in Minute for more stories that bring you closer to your Creator.